Twins and Marlins make another huge swap. The Dodgers and the Guardians take a page out of their books and also swap 2 major league players. Some big news about Rob Manfred. Also some huge news about Dylan Cease and a potential trade. Angels release an absolute huge statement about Ohtani and also make so far the biggest trade of 2023. This and more in today's MLB news. Hello everybody and welcome back to a new video. Yes, we are back with another huge video with a lot of information to talk about. We've had some trades, we've had some huge statements, we've had some huge news regarding everything. So today, if you love this content, don't be scared to drop a follow and also like and ring that bell. Helps a lot. So first of all, Blue Jays, we're going to start with a little trade. The Blue Jays recently, after acquiring Genesis Cabrera, they've released Trent Thornton, or designated Trent Thornton for assignment, and today, or yesterday, the Mariners acquired Trent Thornton from the Blue Jays for minor leaguer Mason McCoy. Yeah, we're just going to gloss over that one. Trent Thornton has a lot of nasty stuff, but doesn't have it all figured out. Now moving on to one of the big news, Eduardo Rodriguez drawing widespread trade interest. As they're saying, that they're reporting that scouts from several rival clubs have been keeping an eye on him, with those clubs being the Rangers, the Rays, the Reds, the Phillies, and the Diamondbacks. Rodriguez, a guy who still has a kind of long contract, so it's going to be interesting to see what the Tigers do. I think if there's a good haul and a good trade offer, I think they will be ready to accept it because the Tigers are still a few years away. But at the same time, Rodriguez, who is having an absolutely fantastic year, I wouldn't be surprised to see if the Tigers want to move forward with this guy as their ace, but they do still have other pitchers as Casey Mize, Tarek Skubal, Matt Manning. They still have a young plethora of pitchers, so I don't think that moving Eduardo Rodriguez would be the end of it. But those teams are very interested, and I can see them maybe paying a big price to go get a pitcher that you know you have control over for the next few years. Now moving on not the biggest trade, but still a pretty huge trade. We have the Twins and Marlins swapping Jorge Lopez for Dylan Floro. This is like a change of scenery for both players. Both players coming off, or right now, not having the greatest year. We're going to start with Dylan Floro heading to the Twins. A veteran guy who is now at the age of 32, has been in the league since 2016. You know, he was a really good pitcher over the last few years, you know, from his time with the Dodgers to now his time with the last three seasons with the Marlins before being traded this year. I think this is a very good pickup for the Twins, because this is a guy that does have a lot of playoff experience with the Dodgers, and I think he's also had playoff experience with the Cubs, if I'm not mistaken. So far this year has an ERA of 4.54. He is an innings eater. He's having trouble this year, but I think a change of scenery could really do good for him in his scenario. I don't think he's a guy that's going to be elite, but he's a guy that in the middle of the bullpen could be very good for them. And he is a free agent at the end of the year, so that is to keep in mind. Now we're also moving on to Jorge Lopez, who is going to the Marlins. Jorge Lopez has one more year left in arbitration. He is 30 years old, so 2 years younger. I think this is absolute steal, in my opinion, so far for the Marlins, because of Jorge Lopez's ceiling. You know, last year when he was with the Baltimore Orioles, he had a 1.68 ERA in 48 and a third innings. He was absolutely nasty. Then he moved to Minnesota, and for his last 50 innings, he's been absolutely atrocious there. He has not found his stuff. He's had a lot of trouble. But I think he's a guy with an absolute huge ceiling. I don't think we're going to ever see him repeat that 2022 season he had with Baltimore. But if he can be around 3, he can be a very good back end of the rotation guy for Miami. And as I've said, he's a guy that has another option for next year. So I think it's a very good deal. And you gave up Dylan Floro, who's this is a good move for both teams, actually, because it's both guys that haven't been working well. And Dylan Floro, I think, is a guy that can really help the Twins this year with a playoff berth and those big games. And Jorge Lopez is a guy that can help the Marlins probably more next year. But I do still think it's a good trade for both teams. Now moving on to the second swap that we had. Between the Dodgers and the Guardians, swapping Ahmed Rosario for Noah Syndergaard. This is an interesting move. So the full trade is Los Angeles announced they've traded starter Noah Syndergaard and cash consideration to the Cleveland Guardians for Ahmed Rosario. That's a pretty good trade. I think that for the Dodgers, it's a very good move because their shortstop right now was... I don't know, actually. It depends on what they decide to do with Ahmed Rosario, but he is a good bat. His defense is lackluster at best, but so far this year, he was having a kind of abysmal season, a high batting average like he usually always has, but it's even lower this year. He's not hitting for any power. His on-base is at 306. He swings pretty much at nothing, but the problem he's had this year compared to other years is his slugging has dropped from about 400 to 369, which means his OPS has dropped from a career average of 708 to an OPS this year of 675. I think this is a good pickup for the Dodgers, and this guy's probably going to be more of a utility guy, but with also the pickup that you had in Kike, you have two very, very good utility guys, with also Chris Taylor being a utility guy. So I think this is a very good move for the Dodgers. He's a free agent at the end of the year, like Noah Syndergaard, but this is a very, very good move. Now moving on to Noah Syndergaard, who this year has been absolutely atrocious, to a tune of 12 starts, a 7.16 ERA, and 55 and a third. His strikeout numbers have completely dropped from, in 55 innings, he only has 38 strikeouts, a whip of almost 1.5, which is about 0.3 higher than his career average. This is an interesting move because I don't know what the Guardians really want to do with this guy. If he's a guy that they're just going to end up trading back, or is a guy they're going to move to the bullpen. I don't really know what the Guardians... They are a weird franchise sometimes. I don't know if they're going to try to re-sign him next year, or they're just going to let him go, or they just want him for this year. I have no idea, but I do think that... I think he's better than what he's shown so far with LA. Maybe they're going to retool him. Maybe use him more as a bullpen piece for the rest of the year. Or maybe this is like... They're expecting to trade Shane Bieber and Aaron Savali, so they need a starter to take their place. Though anyways, Shane Bieber is out on the 60-day DL, or IL, I'm sorry. So he's a guy that's going to be put in the rotation more as a fifth guy. I'm expecting, he doesn't walk a lot of guys, so that is encouraging, but we're going to see what happens. An interesting trade and a very fun trade. Now we're moving on to Rob Manfred news. MLB owners vote to extend Commissioner Rob Manfred. As we expected, the 4-year extension will run through January 25th, 2029. The league has since announced the extension via press release. So I just wanted to say this. I'm going to gloss over it. Good for him. I don't have anything else to say. Okay, now moving on to some Dylan Cease news. They're saying that... teams have been approaching the White Sox, but that the White Sox have not really allowed Dylan Cease to be available. This doesn't mean that no trade will happen, but because of his control through the 2025 season, it's very unlikely that he gets traded. Every team that inquires are getting turned away. This doesn't mean anything is sure for him not to be traded, but it's least likely than it was a few weeks ago. Now moving on to the Angels, we have a lot of Angel news. One of the biggest coming right here. The Angels have announced that Shohei Ohtani is off the trade market. The biggest piece that we've been talking about for like 2 years is officially off the trade market. The reason I've heard is because of the lack of big prospects that were in the deal. They weren't getting what they wanted, and they still do want to compete with... They still want to compete with the team they have. They're saying that they're committed to making a run this year, along with having Angels fans see Ohtani through September and hopefully into October. The best way to try to make the postseason is through addition, not subtractions. This is interesting. I think Ohtani would have been, I don't think they were ever going to get what they wanted, and I don't think teams wanted to give too much with them knowing that it was a rental piece. The reason Soto got as much as he got was because teams knew that they had 2 full seasons of him after. Ohtani, you're not even sure you're going to have a half a season, and then he's probably leaving. So teams weren't willing to give their big prospects for a 1-year push. This being said, after the Angels announced this and saying that they're going to be buyers, they've had a lot of news come out. First of all, the Nationals and the Angels have discussed Jeimer Candelario trade. Nothing is sure yet, but this is something that could be very huge for them. A very good switch hitting bat, a guy that would probably take over the third base role. I don't really know, maybe third base, maybe first. I have no idea. I do expect it to more be first because of a reason later, but this would be a very good pickup for them. A guy who's having a pretty good season this year, very good season, one of the best of his career. So this would be a very good move. But now the big moves I'm here to talk about. The Angels acquire Lucas Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez. So they acquire probably a top 2 starter for their rotation with Ronaldo Lopez, who's going to be a back end of the rotation guy, for 2 prospects, Edgar Cuero and Kai Bush. These are 2 of the biggest prospects in the Angels farm system. Angels do not have a deep farm system, so these are not huge prospects, but for the Angels, it is 2 big prospects. This is pretty much telling us that the White Sox are going to be selling almost everything that they have because they know that they're not competing this year. We're going to start with Ronaldo Lopez, who is a pretty good pickup. He's having a 4.29 ERA in 43 innings. He's a very good inning eater. He's having pretty much a career average season, but he is coming off a very good season. So if he can try to rekindle that season, this would be a very good pickup. I think that, as I said, this guy's an inning eater, so you know he's not going to get hurt. You know he's going to give you innings. He's not the best, but for an Angels team that really need bullpen pieces, this is an absolute great pickup. And to add to that, you go pick up an absolute stud in Lucas Giolito, who's having a very good season. Now you are sure that you have a very good 1-2 if you rock the playoffs with Ohtani, Giolito. Then you have Reed Detmer, Patrick Sandoval, and I'm even forgetting people, Griffin Canning. You have a legit 1-2 now, and even you have a legit 1-2-3. This is a very good pickup. I think this is really going to help Lucas Giolito, and it's going to be a reason for him to be even more motivated, because now he's going to play with arguably the 2 best players in baseball, and Mike Trout, who's supposed to be returning soon. Follow-up move to this, the Angels have designated Jared Walsh for assignment to make room for Lucas Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez, and have transferred Ben Joyce to the 60-day injury list to make room for Lucas Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez. Absolute huge day in baseball. I did not expect to make a video today, but with all the big stuff that happened, the trade deadline is becoming absolutely juicy. I hope you all like this, and if you did, like I said earlier in the video, don't be scared to drop a follow, don't be scared to drop a like, don't be scared to drop a comment on what you guys think is the next big move that the Angels will be making. I love you all, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.